go hide in the loft.
I'm here to collect Mr. Hawthorne's rent! Shut that squeal! Before I get you open squeal now! Christ almighty!
Johnny Fletcher busted into a farmhouse on his property.
You bring me back that stuff to fault.
Well, well, look at what we have here. Please don't kill me.
Gentleman John Fletcher! Damn it!
Johnny Fletcher! Don't make me chase you!
I didn't kill nobody. I didn't murder that family.
That don't break me down to me. The bounty hunter, you're a wanted man. Here.
Out of the night that covers me, black is the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds, and shall find me, unafraid. It matters not how straight the gates, how sharp the punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul.
Nocturn. Stand down and no one has to die today.
This only ends one way.
They'll kill you all.
Why not take your chances in a prison cell?
Alright, I'm coming out.
My lord, I have a report.
Speak.
Our latest assassination attempt on Lady Nocturn has failed.
I can see stronger measures are needed. Begin phase 2.
Captured! The notorious Lady Nocturn has been brought in through the valiant efforts of the Void Cobras.
Get on the jam first.
Prisoner, take 5 steps, then stop and turn your right.
But the pirates of Velix Mortis are far from defeated.
My lord, I have a report.
Let's cut to the chase, since we both know that this isn't a social call and you didn't come here to waste time.
Fine. High Command is gambling that the attempt on your life by your so-called friends has made you willing to cooperate. Am I wasting my time now?
What fate will befall the disgraced former pirate?
The Minotaur sends his regards, traitor.
What does your High Command want, and what are they offering in return?
High Command wants many things, but it wants a show of good faith first.
Team 1, move up. Marking to covering fire.
Bravo Team 1, push up. Bravo 2, give us support.
What next for now infamous mercenaries, the Void Cobras?
I want every last pirate I used to run with dead. I don't want to be watching over my shoulder every hour of every day.
Now you die!
Will the Void Cobras become targets of Lady Nocturn's former pirate comrades?
Attention, crash override. This is Freighter Ebony Hawk. My ship just lost all power and thrust. We're going down. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
There truly is no honor among thieves. You rabble will turn on each other at the slightest provocation.
Okay, fine. Moving past you.
Find out on the next episode of Star Citizen Nocturne.
Jameson, you copy?
Touch me now, I don't want to live without you. Nothing's gonna change my love for you.
Jameson, we require immediate emergency extract.
I don't know, man. It looks kind of hot over there.
Of interest in my life to idiots.
Okay, got it working, Sarge.
Alright, Corporal. Good work. Follow me! Y'all remember what Sarge said? Stay together, keep comms clear, and heads on the swivel.
Clear.
Okay, we're gonna secure it, then sweep the entire ship for survivors. Channel, you take point. Doc, you're behind me. Corporal, you're bringing up the rear.
Understood, Sergeant.
Taking track. God, oh my God!
Let's get the hell out of here!
Get him off me, get him off me, get him off me! They're getting in my armor! Ah!
I got into collecting bounties when a gang of bandits bushwhacked my wife, my best friend Coyote, and me. Meet the Jones brothers.
To take a look at the situation in which you find yourself.
That's Joshua.
It's gonna have real bad.
What's the Indian word for
Next to him is Rufus the Doofus.
Like, I don't know. You're just trying to make me look dumb.
All right, I want to
Next
see
to
rifles
him is
on the
Lyman.
ground.
Remember those faces.
And 6.
You'll see him again.
8 hands praising Jesus.
The other ones, well, ain't no use in introducing. They're all dead.
Run!
Obadiah, get the saddlebags!
I got him!
I later discovered the Jones brothers were all wanted men. I figured I might as well get paid for taking my revenge.
Man, we still wanted for justice.
The post is still on the wall?
So I hunted down the ones we didn't kill. Lyman, he sang like a bird. Rufus and Joshua were smuggling contraband down the river. Always to the same spot. I found a nice perch on a bluff above the river where I knew they would eventually be. During the war, I was a sharpshooter. Coyote's Whitworth came in handy. For weeks, I tracked them. Then I killed them.
If you like our content, we'd appreciate if you'd like, subscribe, and get notifications. Help us extend our reach by sharing our video content. And if you want to help us beat the algorithm, also leave us a comment on some of our videos.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As you can see, we're absent admin Tim at the moment. Hopefully, he's just about ready to join in with us. I'm.
Hear me?
Yes. A voice speaks to us.
I don't know. My camera was working fine when I did sound check, and now all of a sudden it's just decided that I can go fuck myself. So
that does sound like something that your equipment does.
There you go.
All right, is this working? I don't know what it is. Like StreamYard will lie to me. It's like 6:30 Eastern. I log in and I'm like, I can see myself, I can hear myself. Somebody else will get on. I'll be like, hey, can you see me? Can you hear me? And they're like, yeah, you're good to go. And then showtime starts, and guess what? Nope.
The error is human, but to truly follow things up requires a computer.
Certainly extends reach.
To error is computer. Anyway, so what's going on? Are we live?
Oh, we got some complaints. Cat do not approve of the soundtrack. If you could find a more cat-friendly intro there, Chief.
A more cat-friendly intro, rather. I mean, Mikey likes it, so he's over there like. All right. So everybody knows who we are. So let's just skip who we are because it's not really important. What's important is that we have a special guest tonight. And as is my tradition, I'm going to let our special guest introduce themselves because they know better than we do.
My name is Nicholas Lamar Soutter. I am the King of Siam. I was the first person ever to land on Mars and successfully return. Listen, if you guys are going to let me, I'm also a writer, so this is just a perfect excuse to just make up shit. My name is Nick Soutter. I am a writer. You can look that up. But that notwithstanding, this is why my wife stopped inviting me to conferences, was because it was all science stuff. So I would just I would Sid Dither's CIA, and they'd be like, "What's the CIA doing here?" I was like, "It's supposed to say guest." I'm not here. But anyways, so I have a news and commentary program called In Time. We're an educational show. We focus. I personally believe education is the silver bullet. I don't think there are any problems facing us, any problems anywhere that cannot be overcome without education. Education's a difficult thing because what you consider an education might be different than what I consider an education. And so I think dialogue is usually the best way to try to find a way forward. My co-hosts, I have a number of different co-hosts. We have Commander Lance McMillan, who is on In Time and our Downtime show as well. He was the staging. He was the commander for the staging of the Iraq War for the Fifth Fleet out of CENTCOM. We also have Zandering. He's a former Navy. He's a libertarian. Commander is sort of on the left. Zandering has been on the right. We've had a number of debates, including on Second Amendment, so on and so forth. And one of the reasons he sticks around, one of the reasons we keep him around, is because he truly listens to other people's ideas and will give you an honest hearing. And we try to give him an honest hearing. And together we try to inform people of what's going on in this country and across the world. So it's In Time, youtube.com/In Time Show. And a number of people from In Time are already here. So that's good to see, and that's it. That's what I do when I'm not running Siam.
I'm always so in Siam. I'm presuming court has a lot of that joke must have fallen flat. All right.
I didn't hear you. You cut out.
I cut out.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I don't know why
I was late coming in here because my computer was doing the same thing. It's like I had a preview up with my software. Camera preview shows that I'm good, and it says you don't have a camera. So it's just like I can see myself.
Right. Yeah, backstage, I'm like, I turn off my camera because it's a little thumbnail of me doing whatever it is I'm doing, whether I'm drinking, picking my nose, playing the guitar, I don't know. And so I'm like, let me just shut the little lens cap, boop, and then showtime starts, and it's like, you don't have a camera at all. I'm like, you are a liar. I'm literally looking at my image, waving at myself.
Elon Musk was 16 years old, and he said, what can I do to most fuck with people's lives? Get into technology. That's a great idea. And here we are today.
Steal other people's inventions.
Yeah, steal exactly.
So you have a YouTube channel. Would you call it a podcast, or you just do like live streams like we do?
No, it's not. Well, I haven't called it a podcast. We do live streams. We do pre-recorded shows specifically for Columbus Day has for a very long time, ever since I read Howard Zinn's what is it, People's History of the United States, where he reads Christopher Columbus's journals, and he's just like, oh yeah, we had this funny thing happen yesterday. A guy picked up the sword by the wrong end and you cut off his fingers. We've been raping and pillaging through here. It's amazing how easy it is to rape the natives. I mean, this was in his journal. And so we'll have educational programs, or we'll have like half-hour segments called Nick of Time. All our shows, there's a theme, in case you haven't. So where I get like 10 or 15 minutes to talk about. So we'll talk about Martin Luther King Jr., the things that sort of people didn't realize or know about him, and put him in context. We release that every Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Christopher Columbus. For some reason, my BAs are in psychology and philosophy. We ended up getting onto Hume's problem of induction. So yes, we have a philosophy video describing, it's like, okay, you want to know what Hume's problem of induction is and why it's an issue? Here you go, 15 minutes. I'm a high school teacher too, so I'm used to, and that's it. So we have a lot of pre-recorded videos. We interviewed General Ben Hodges, which I don't know if your audience would know who they are, who he is. Or if I should explain who he is, but that's a long explanation. Former number 2 guy at NATO, former number 2 general in the United States. So commander of all U.S. forces Europe, commander of all NATO ground forces worldwide. So yeah, but we do the same. We do a lot of the same thing, I think, that you guys do.
So I like history. Right now I'm doing this cosplay bit that is like a longer bearded General Sherman talking smack about Southerners and stuff, Confederate Southerners specifically, and uplifting the Southern Unionists. So you mentioned Martin Luther King, and I had done quite an extensive study on him over the last probably 8 years, because every year we celebrate Black History Month because why not? And so every time I go to make a post, and of course he's obviously one person that you absolutely must talk about, I always try to add something new. So I'm running out of things to learn about. So what is something about Martin Luther King when you mentioned that you talk about things that most people don't know? What would one of those things be?
He jumped out of a second-story window at his home after his grandmother died, and he had blamed himself for her death. There are people who interpret that as a suicide attempt, if you want to, but the death of his grandmother had a huge impact on him, and he became an atheist. He was an atheist for much of his life through college. He decided he wanted to help people, but he did not believe in God. And this is what he told his father. This is what he told ministers. His father insisted he continue coming to church. He said, I will come to church because you can force me to. But that's it. And when he was in college, and so that gets nuanced how he got back into religion and why. And there's some evidence to suggest that he actually did it more not because he had any kind of revelation or come to Jesus moment per se, but because he really wanted to affect change and he knew religion would be a good way to do it. But having said all that, let's see. He did not want to marry Coretta Scott King. The woman he wanted to marry was white. But he had to. One of his best friends basically said, "You will have to choose. You cannot be married to a white woman and be a Southern Baptist minister anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Pick." And his wife was interviewed. Not his wife. His original. The woman that he had fallen in love with was interviewed since, and people have asked, what would have happened if. But and then the other one that I like is that he. And it's not that people don't know this; it's that they don't think about it. The other one that I like. He is probably a genius level intellect, and I would like to remind everyone: read about letter from a Birmingham jail. It's one of the most impressive pieces of literature, American literature. One of the most impressive pieces of literature by mankind. I think it belongs up there, with the canon of. That kind of literature, and realize he wrote it with a pencil and paper, no Google, no library, no cell phone, nothing. And he quotes Plato, Aristotle, he quotes, saints, he quotes politicians, he quotes dead chief justices, he quotes Adam Smith, he quotes all of these things off the top of his head from prison. Still a human being. He cheated on his wife. He, and I like to bring that up because Mr. Rogers is another one that I actually talk about. And Mr. Rogers hated being called a saint. He hated being called a special person in any way because he was like, you realize you can do this too, right? So Martin Luther King was very human, and all of us can emulate those pieces of him that you want to. It's just up to you. That's it. Oh, does that help? Does that answer your question? Because I'm sure you knew half of that.
I knew some of those things. I didn't know all of them.
I'm
not ashamed to admit that at all. I was just, when you said, that he was quoting, you're listing off all the people that he's quoting. I don't know why, but for some reason, I had this very brief mental image of Martin Luther King Jr. on Jeopardy. And I realized that that's super trivial and super, pop culture-y, and probably was something that he would never do. But just for some reason, I'm just picturing Alex Trebek having a one-on-one double Jeopardy thing with Martin Luther King.
He'd have done it just because he had a sense of humor. He had a really good sense of humor. Which most intelligent people do. So he'd probably been like, "Yeah, sure. If Alex Trebek wants me on, I'll go do that."
Yeah, it's always interesting to see the elements beyond kind of the headline level of a major figure that really does humanize them and makes them much more approachable as the individual rather than as the sum of their work, if you will.
Well, and to wit, let me point out two things just to actually tie that into where we are today, which is I also point out what happened when he died, because the U.S. went insane. The riots were so bad that the military had to be deployed, and they had to try to keep the rioters from reaching the White House. They got about 8 blocks away with the full intent of burning it down. There were machine gun nests on the Capitol Hill. So you can just see there's the Capitol, and there's a bunch of guys with sandbags and a machine gun to mow down anyone who gets too close. And I mean, there were fires. The country was on fire. And if you add to that the number of people and then we put at the end RFK talking about, listen, I understand loss. I lost my brother. JFK. I saw his head blown. I understand loss, and I understand why people are upset. And then of course he gets assassinated. So the times are tough now, but the U.S. has gone through a lot of really weird stuff before, and that brings us to I don't like it when people call Adolf Hitler a monster. Sorry for demonetizing you just by saying that word, but and I don't like it because
We're
it
not
makes it so
monetized.
easy. Oh,
true.
Oh, good. Well, I heard
You
you
can
say
say whatever the fuck you want.
Oh, this
Yeah,
is
we've been labeled as way too out there to every monetize.
If you want to talk about slash fan fiction of Mao Zedong, Jackhammer, and Adolf Hitler in a three-way in a doo-doo shoot with Joseph Stalin, we can absolutely have that conversation because we don't get a penny from any social media. We are labeled dangerous.
True story.
Well, that is the first time I've ever heard that sentence in my life. It's not that I have that good a memory. I'm just pretty sure I remember.
What, us being dangerous or the other thing?
No,
Yeah.
the Hitler in a three-way with
that just comes up all the time. What history discussion doesn't delve into that?
Check
every now and
out
then?
my live journal.
They're in a convention just like three ways, right? With Hitler and Mao Zedong.
What's really strange about that was actually the first time I got called down to the principal's office as a teacher, and the principal was like, have you been talking about Hitler having three ways with Mao and Stalin? And I said, well, it's very important because you've got this axis of, and he said, like, you do realize that you're a computer science teacher, right? I said, well, yes, that's true, but you have to make the material interesting for the kids. So we agreed to disagree, and we also agreed that he was in charge of my paycheck. So I stopped with the three-way action. Let me rephrase that. I stopped talking about three-way action can we just change topics? Am I allowed to say we should start this one
about how you
steer it where you need to go, man. Steer it where you need to go.
So the Hitler is a monster. I wish he was a monster. I so wish he was a monster, because then we wouldn't have to own the fact that regular people followed him. That he was an artist. He was a regular person who and there's what is it? The estimation is about 10% of the species, human beings, does not have a sense of empathy. So they're psychopathic or sociopathic, and they hide it, but they don't have it. And they've learned to fake it because that's the easiest way to get along in society, but it's a defense mechanism. It's not that they've got it. You don't even need that. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that Trump has no empathy, but all that notwithstanding, there are even people with empathy who have done horrific things. It isn't that hard. What you really just need is a justification and a belief, sometimes in a higher power. I mean, let's go to the Crusades. That's one of my complaints about religion in general, is it empowers so much. Pope John Paul II, I think he truly had empathy. I think most popes probably actually do. Maybe they're faking it. I think most bishops are faking it, and they're the ones who elect the pope, so who knows. But having said that, Pope John Paul II 1992 did one of the more damaging things for the human species, decided that he wanted to convert the entire continent of Africa, make them all Catholics. The problem with this, number of problems with this, it was widely successful, the single greatest mission in the history of all Catholicism, and is why every 7 seconds a child starves to death in Africa. It's because there's no family parenting. They and the bishops in Africa lied. They said condoms actually give you AIDS, and you can justify that kind of thing if you believe in a higher power. That, you know, if you believe God really wants you to protect life so much that you need to bomb a clinic, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. There are people with empathy who can do absolutely horrible things. So
Yeah.
I don't. The long story short is vigilance and, again, dialogue. That's why and by the way, thank you. I didn't say thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on. Thank you for
speaking of empathy.
And I love coming on these shows and talking about this shit, obviously.
I think it's Pascal who said, man does evil. Man never does evil so willingly and cheerfully as he does with religious conviction. And
I don't,
to your point,
I don't remember if that was Pascal, but yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, it's possible I'm wrong. I'm not great with quotes, but I seem to remember that one.
You're no Martin Luther King Jr., sir.
Well, that is a whole category.
That little clip right there of me saying that is probably going to end up on
all kinds of right-wing sites, and
it's going to end up on Twitter. Look at them desecrating
compare themselves to Martin Luther King.
Listen, I've given up on dignity or respect coming out of this show, and it's the three-way thing. That's going to be clipped and put everywhere. That three-way thing is just, I'm already, it's
just that.
We're calling it 15
it's like a 10-minute thing with them talking in front of it.
Yeah, no, that's it. Well, and I have my trolls, right? They know who I am. They're like, oh, Nick's going to be on. Let's see if he does or says anything. I was on Bad Science Sunday with Maya Atkinson, and the subject of nipple clamps came up, and
as it does.
As well, you know, it's a science show, so, you know, do I have to spell it out for you? But the issue at the time wasn't the nipple clamps themselves. It was the placement of said clamps, which would be on another place on the male body quite south of the nipple, which struck me as being rather painful. But the general consensus was that in order for me to be making the arguments I was making at the time, I must have had said nipple clamps on at the time. Now, this suit is said to cost $400, and there's a reason for that. There's a long story. I always stream with this. There's a reason for it. We can get into if you want to. It's said to cost $400. It does not. It costs $200 because I got it at half off. The restriction is I can't stand up.
Best guest ever.
Oh, well, that is a compliment.
Would you like to be an admin on the Sons of Liberty?
You do not want me as an admin on the. I'm.
Au contraire, mon frère.
We have a saying on our show because you know, we've had several producers, but right now we are without a producer, so I am producing. That's fine, but we never start on time. We always have technical issues, and so the motto of our show is
that's like
in time, not on time. And you know, so if you want things to work, I'd be happy to. Sorry, if you want things to work, don't offer me a job doing anything technical for your show. If you don't care if it works, I'm your guy.
I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, but it doesn't work.
You know, it did not escape my notice. I did. There's one or two tip-offs since the show has started.
I'm pretty sure it's Mikey, honestly. Just in there fiddling with the wires, like, I'm gonna pay attention to me tonight, huh? All right.
We blame everything on Mikey.
I do, because my setup works, so I can't blame RAM.
It's true.
We blame everything on Canada, but we have to stop doing that now because Trump is literally blaming everything on Canada. So it's sort of like we can't. We have a bunch of Canadian followers who are like, that shit isn't funny. It's like, you know what, you're right. When we're talking about invading Canada, like for real, just like, yeah, we should stop joking about Canada as the fault of yeah. I feel so bad for them.
It was funny with South Park, but that was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's like,
and suddenly it became foreign policy somehow. But you know what? Here we are in the dumbest timeline.
Right.
That's good. Oh.
At least they managed to leverage Trump's stupidity into a election victory for their left-leaning side.
That was a shock.
Yeah,
it wasn't one.
It was good. You go back 6 months. There was no way their liberal coalition was pulling off a win. Trump managed to make the Canadian left popular again through just sheer Trumpian stupidity.
I just want to know what, and it's idle curiosity. Was he actually influenced by the South Park movie, or did he come up with this on his own? He was just like, I saw it on television. These 4 kids. Canada just warped their minds. We have to attack Canada because if he sees it on television, that's why Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense. Where he's like he runs. He's on Fox and Friends, so clearly he's qualified to run nationals.
They're his friends. They're the Fox and Friends. His daily friends.
The ones that he calls it. I love when he's overstayed his welcome. And they're like, we're sure you have to get back to work at things at the White House, sir. Oh, no, I'm doing fine. Thank you. They're trying to be polite, but they're like, we don't want to talk to this fucker anymore.
Sir, please leave. Sir, please leave. It's enough. It's enough.
That's one of those things where you discreetly reset your ringtone on your phone, and then it automatically plays the new ringtone, and you're like, oh, hold on 1 second. Mom,
gotta go.
Grandma died? What? I have to go. How many grandparents do you have? Brian Mead? 17?
All of them.
As many as the bit calls for.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I listen. Have you ever heard of the multiverse? I have literally an infinite number of grandparents. It's just where my phone can call any of them from anywhere. So it's a quantum level phone, and like when they die on it, I feel that guilty that I have to my grandmother from alternate dimensions. I have to give her a call. What can you do?
Phone services through Doctor Strange.
Always a good night when we work some Marvel references in. At least here on Earth 616.
Yeah, if DC had something as big in pop culture, we could throw that in there too.
They're busy screwing that up with whatever their latest take on their own incredibly successful franchises that they will completely botch in a live action film. Just they can't help themselves.
No Way Home, a shot at rejuvenating things for them, I think. But the only reason it had that shot was because they decided we clearly can't come up with anything original. So let's just steal what Marvel's doing and basically how they're doing it, and then we'll do well. And it's sort of like, actually, in this case, you might have a point because the DC, so then they brought in, the multiverse again, and now the whole, it was well done.
This was not the conversation that I imagined.
But it's the conversation that's happening. If you don't like it, you blame a gorilla in 2015, and ever since that point, it's just.
This is how it always is, isn't it? I mean, I feel like
that we have a plan and then we completely go somewhere off over here. Yeah.
Oh no, definitely that. It's like, okay, tonight's agenda, we're gonna do this, 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 and this. Can we do this now? Can we do this now?
Like
And then we don't do any
he
of
sends
that.
the pre-read package over to us all with the info we're supposed to read and have ready and everything. It's zero of it's applicable. We followed absolutely nothing that we had in mind.
Well, it's not the conversation we deserve, but I think it's the conversation we need right now.
I think it's a great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy to sit here and talk comic books the whole time. Just nerd it out. But we've got some pretty pressing issues.
Yes, sir.
In the nation these days.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we keep hearing the words constitutional crisis, but this really is a serious constitutional crisis. It's been the problem is it's been thrown around for decades, for so long, of what if, maybe, what if, or what if they do this, and then. But now we're actually at a point where we're looking at judge rulings being ignored by the executive branch. The executive branch executing blatantly unconstitutional actions, from warrantless searches to picking people literally off the street, throwing a bag off their head and driving them to the county where they know they've got a planted judge that'll just rule in their favor for everything. And we're seeing that this is really just kind of all going out the window really fast in front of us. And it's kind of like watching a car accident and not being able to really do anything, and feeling that our usual tactics of protest and calling and putting pressure on are not going to work if no one else chooses to wield any power in DC. Congress is just abdicating their authority to the executive branch at this point. And while the judicial branch has been willing to slap them down until there's some kind of enforcement, I mean, it's just pretty words.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think you hit the nail on the head. The way I learned a constitutional crisis was where you basically have two mutually exclusive issues with the Constitution that render it incapable of going forward. Would be close with one, actually, if I told you that Trump never had a first term. The president during Trump's first term, in my view, and this is not a joke, was Paul Ryan. Reason is as follows. The Russian interference was easily close enough to change the outcome of the election. We know that because Hillary won the popular vote, and it was only by several thousand votes, in particular, several hundred in key districts, several thousand total correct votes, that had they gone the other way, we know the Russian interference was sufficient enough to have done this. Obama knew that at the time. So what he should have done is had he can't hand it to Hillary. He cannot give it to Hillary, because even though she won, even though I think by any fair analysis she won, he would be overriding the other party getting it and giving it to Hillary. Ergo, he has to declare it invalid. So there is no presidential election. That means by constitutional succession, it's the Speaker of the House, which was Paul Ryan at the time, becomes president. I think now, if you subscribe to that, then everything that Trump did in his first term is completely null and void. It also means he could actually run again if he wanted to, but we won't get into that, and we'll try not to pass him that idea. He's going to do it anyway. But so there's, constitutional crisis, right? Does that mean everything that he's done in his first term, because he was not actually president? Those are all kind of cute. In my when I was in college, we had a student council. Quorum for that student council was, I think, 50 people. In order to approve new members, you had to have quorum in order to approve new members. And there was an argument. Everyone got upset. And the number of people who quit was below 50. And the 50 wasn't a percentage of how many, it was actually set in the actual documents, which means now you've got a constitutional crisis because you can't have quorum to add new members. But so you're in a deadlock position. So I learned of constitutional crisis that way. I think most people think of it as that. That is not what we have here. Nonetheless, we do have a constitutional crisis, and here's why. We have several mutually exclusive interpretations of the Constitution in terms of where power lies, and they are such that they are that if the executive side is not willing to let go, and they have on a few issues, they have more than I expected them to, but I think they're just buying time. The country cannot go forward under the current constitution. So it is a constitutional crisis. Where does this crisis arise? Exactly the way you laid it out. The executive branch does not recognize the authority of the judicial branch to enforce any of its actions. Strictly speaking, they're probably right. But the founding fathers didn't put that into the Constitution because it's like they didn't define the word "the" either, because they figured you kind of understand what it means. They already laid out that each of these, that they explicitly say in the Constitution what the judicial branch does, and enforcement is entailed in that. And it's the job of the executive to enforce it, whether or not they agree. And then Trump's just like, nope. Okay, so now one of the three branches is effectively useless. They've been having some efficacy. The fact that he arrested a judge in Wisconsin and then had her thrown, and then in his next executive order specifically mentioned his ability to arrest judges, political officials, state senators, governors, anybody he wants to. The executive order he dropped last night was fucking terrifying. And it explicitly fast tracks the arrest and prosecution, not of criminals, or not of drug dealers, not of gangbangers, not of terrorists, but of state, political, and not appointed. What is it? The police, any of the judges, any of those state officials that are interfering with his policies. That's what's getting fast-tracked, and he even suggested using RICO against them. So the Racketeering Act against state governors, that's in the executive order he dropped last night. So the judicial branch is not only not having any of its any enforcement powers, and it's their own fault. And In Time, by the way, was covering this as they were doing. We're like, I have never seen. The first thing I learned in civics about this government and about governments in general is they don't give up power, and the three branches fiercely guard. You can't get the judicial branch to say, oh no, that's Congress's job. No, that's our job. We'll do that. And you can't get this SCOTUS has been sitting there going like, it's like, oh no, you can't arrest the president. No, you can't indict the president. No, you can't. No, not even states can do it. No, they're just giving him power and power and power. And I was like, do you guys have any idea? So now he can pardon anybody he wants to. You can't indict him. You can't go after him. You can't, so I mean, it's like, and even the state cases were dropped against him because they can't do anything. That was clever. That's Jesus. Morally and ethically, it may not be Dred Scott, but holy smoke, it's probably going to be the worst decision if the Constitution can survive it. So at any rate, judicial branch has now two fundamental problems. One, it can't enforce its policies. Two, it is under direct attack and doesn't appear to have any way to, it appears to be able to repel it reasonably well, because if a judge orders another judge out of prison, that judge will be taken out of prison so long as that prison isn't in El Salvador, which is coming next, believe me. At any rate, so that's the judicial branch. The executive branch, you've got a couple of problems there. That's not the executive, sorry. The legislative branch, you've got a couple of problems there. My biggest concern is Speaker of the House Johnson. So long as he is Speaker of the House, we have a number of very serious problems, not the least of which is Trump can at any time suspend Congress for 2 years. That's it. Just as long as Johnson agrees. If Johnson agrees, Trump can suspend Congress. They don't come into work. Even if they do, they cannot do business. They cannot pass laws. They cannot do anything. So right now, everybody's in this position of, he made it clear his first term, he's aware of this power. It is in, I think it's Article 2, Section 3, and nobody has ever used it before. It was intended to be used to settle disputes between the two houses and let the president suspend them while they cool off, not to just suspend them for 2 years, but he can do it. And so that notwithstanding, right now they're sitting back and letting him take the power of the purse. So he is line item vetoing any legislation he doesn't like. I don't like the Department of Education. Gone. Doesn't matter that Congress established it and, funded it. So as long as they're willing to do that, they are complicit in what he's doing, and we are going to end up either in a fascist, one of three things is going to happen: a fascist country, a total collapse in civil war, or something wildly unexpected that's going to bail us out of all of this. And that sounds really silly when I say that, but I was teaching high school when 20 years ago, the last time they had a huge, really big upset over Kashmir. India and Pakistan going at it over Kashmir. Russia was allied with Pakistan. We were allied with India. So if they go at it, it's World War III. And they were fighting, but it was limited to the Kashmir region. And then Pakistan said, we've told all of our commanders that they can deploy tactical nuclear weapons at their leisure. It's just like we've released command and control authority of tactical nuclear weapons to the field. I remember the kids coming into school that day, and it's a little hard to get kids to work under that level of stress, which, by the way, is true. We know the biology of how stress affects your ability to learn. It's one reason why inner city kids' schools do so poorly. The students do so poorly. If you have to worry about being poor, about whether you can eat, and about the gunshots you hear every night, you cannot learn as well as other people. So all that notwithstanding, getting back to the issue, we're talking about learning, education. Wow, now getting me to talk is easy. It's getting me to shut up that's the hard part. So Congress, dear Lord, I ended up going. It's because it's a learning under stress. So the students came in, and we were talking about the release of tactical nuclear weapons, and like if one of those goes off, both the U.S. and Russia have to enter the war. They have to. We're obligated by treaty, and that's how every world war starts. And I said, is this how every world war starts? Yep. But here's the interesting thing. There's a fallacy that I always think about. It's my favorite fallacy in philosophy. It's called affirming the consequent. We do it all the time. We do it like 30, 40 times a day. It's a really common one. I think it's probably the single most common one. Yes, all world wars started that way. But not every situation like that ended in a world war. In fact, situations like that happen all the time. When Iran was lobbing missiles into the green zone in Iraq, they're hitting the U.S. They're hitting U.S. territory. And everyone's like, World War III, World War III. And yet we didn't have it. We got out of it. Now, I couldn't foresee how. I didn't sit there and say, I was just sort of cooler heads prevail. Well, that's not really a plan. So I'm not saying, I support people who are protesting. I support people who are doing things, but let's not exclude the third option, which is we don't know how this is going to end. And things like this have happened before and not resulted in a fascist dictatorship, but actually resolved peaceably. I don't know. I couldn't lay odds one way or the other, but it's one of those three endings, and you can't discount something wild is going to end. You had said earlier, the Liberals just won in Canada. Nobody could have predicted that 6 months ago. So we cannot predict where we're going to be in 6 months. We can't. We can say that if things don't change dramatically, then with that caveat, I can tell you where we're going to be in 6 months. It's not good.
Yeah. Certainly feels like we're further down the road to oblivion than ever before. Certainly in my lifetime, anyway.
there have been other social issues that have caused more damage that was more obvious and more direct. This one, because it's such an attack on the Constitution itself by the executive branch and with so much support, it's unprecedented. And one of the things that we've done, it's either laugh or cry. So on our show, half in jest and half to give people perspective on it, we just say, okay, what year is it? And right now it's about 1935. So, and then those of you who know history sit there and say, oh, okay, I know why he's picking that. So what we're doing is we have correlated, okay, so what's next in Germany? Well, reasonably soon is going to be changing the oath, the Pledge of Allegiance, from allegiance to the state and to the office of the Chancellor to the Chancellor himself, Adolf Hitler. Like, so we're like, okay, so we're going to see in the next, we think, month. It's already happened that somebody suggested the Pledge of Allegiance should be to Trump, not to the flag. So we're like, okay, when that starts to become serious, we're now moving to the later half of 1935. So based on legislation, based on what is happening, we are saying, where would we be if this was the Third Reich?
Are you anticipating a and I know a number of people speculate on this, the quintessential Reichstag fire moment, that some kind of attack happens. It's over the top of false flag, but it's all the state needs to impose serious crackdown on all the perceived enemies to round it up in the name of security. It's always in the name of security.
You couldn't write this. The beer hall push actually already happened, of course.
Yeah.
That was January 6th. So it's like, oh my, I mean, Hitler was thrown in jail for trying to overthrow the government once. It's just like, okay, yes, I'm anticipating that. And we're also anticipating a Night of the Long Knives. That Musk is out right now. He was always going to be out. I think he's out sooner than they anticipated. But I think my suspicion is, especially at the Heritage Foundation, reasonably soon. So there was no distinction in the military between those who had joined Hitler before he became chancellor and who had really helped him, and those who hadn't, except for the chevrons. That's where the chevrons came in. And the chevrons indicated a loyalty to the party beyond it's popular and succeeding, so I'm joining the side that's winning. It was so those would be the chevrons in this situation will be the Marjorie Taylor Greens, all those others. Those will help in some. So they're going to need either a real event or a false flag. They're probably hoping that there's a real event and going to wait for that. They haven't amassed enough power where that's going to work. And Trump's poll numbers have caught everybody off guard. I'm surprised by his poll numbers, mostly because while I'm aware of what's happening to the economy, it's nowhere near where we're gonna be. I mean, we've okay. Let's say at this exact moment, sun blows up. What happens?
About 7 seconds later, it gets really dark.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Excuse me.
It's 7 minutes. 7 minutes. The sun is 7 light minutes away. There's no way for us to know that the sun has gone out or exploded. It can't be done. If you've got a radio antenna there, it would still take that antenna those 7 minutes to send the signal back to Earth. So if the sun exploded, we'd still be orbiting. The gravity takes 7 minutes to get here. So you can have an event that has happened, and yet the consequences haven't been felt. They are completely inevitable. They're coming. And so I try to use that metaphor to explain like the tariffs. Like even if Trump said, I want Kamala to handle this, fired his entire cabinet, bailed, Kamala Harris came in, and Congress flipped, all that, we are still going to feel a huge economic strike like a tsunami on
Yep.
based on this, and it's going to take us a generation to overcome what we've done in terms of gaining trust from our allies. So we have not felt the body blow that is coming. I thought we'd feel it by the end of April. No. All right. It's
looking like late May, right?
Right now.
Yeah.
The thing is really,
obviously.
when is Social Security going to start failing? It has to, because they didn't really have enough people as it was, and now they've got fewer, and now all their systems have been tampered with, and a number of names have been deleted, and the files are, I mean, when Social Security starts failing, the other thing is, of course, most of the people on Social Security spend that money right away.
Yeah.
Basically everybody. They're not saving it. So not only are you affecting them and them going out into the streets and not being able to pay medical bills and all of this other stuff, but you're also affecting the businesses that rely on them. That money actually circulates back. Social Security is almost really an investment in our country, which people aren't really recognizing, but Social Security and disability. So it's a double blow when that starts to fail. I expected that to be failing sooner than it has, but there's no way it can continue as is. So we'll see what happens. Trump is going to have to do something about his numbers. He absolutely has to do something about his numbers. But what that suggests to me is somehow the effects of that body blow, of the sun blowing up, is actually being felt by his supporters more than I can perceive that it is, because he is losing core support. So how and where, I don't know. I have a couple ideas. One of the big ideas is, if you take a look at who's dependent on Social Security, there's a larger percentage dependent on government subsidies in red states than in blue states.
It's true.
So even if you're a MAGA supporter, first of all, and this isn't meant as this isn't even meant as a dig at them. You probably have some maturity issues. The guy with the thing and when they're going through and the yelling and the screaming, the reality is there's a lot of this tribalistic, very animalistic, so there's maturity issues there. There are plenty of people further to the right of them that are mature and scary. MAGA is this kind of really immature, yada, yada, yada. When they get a call, both metaphorically and in reality, from their mother, who's in a nursing home, who says, I'm told now I can't talk with Social Security unless I get on X. And I opened up my flip phone and I couldn't find the X button. How do I get on X so I can do Social Security? And they can ignore that for a short period of time, but when it's their mothers, when it's their family, so I've been anticipating some kind of blowback, but that's happening faster than I anticipated as well. And that's what I mean too. It's you don't know. There's so many factors. I can sit here. I'll rattle off. We'll have conversations like this, and we're like, "Oh, Nick has such a command of this." There are people who have a greater command of this than I do, and they're like, "I don't know." And there are people who have no command of this. They say, "Nick, you know all of this." I was like, "Oh, I can make it look like I know a shit ton about this, but the amount that we don't know, the amount that's going on at the Heritage Foundation." You want to know what I want to know? I want to know how much Russian money is going into the Heritage Foundation. I don't know what that answer is. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I have a guess, and I have a number of reasons for the guess. It's not just because of Trump and all of these other things. I also know that Trump got $21 billion that bailed him out when he was in his eighth bankruptcy. Now, no bank would touch him because he was filing Chapter 11, which means he was discharging all the debts. So no bank would touch him. Then all of a sudden, Deutsche Bank, which George so long Yep. So long as there was a co-signer. Co-signer was Vladimir Putin, not in name. It was the Bank of Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the Bank of Moscow. He still owes that money. In fact, that money was essentially laundered. So, I don't think there's any expectation he needs to pay it back unless he starts getting uppity. At any rate, I'd like to know. Yeah, I've got questions. Anyways,
I had a conversation with a mega supporter today where I was, trying to keep level, whatnot, and she kept going on about how, well, the increase in prices and less stuff on the shelf is good because it'll force us all to save money. People won't buy things they don't need then. This is really, some imposed, maturity by the president on the American people, so they won't buy all those things they don't need. You mean like food, Becky? Do you mean that? Because that's the thing you're not going to be able to buy.
This is how delusional they are.
It really are. And she was being as honest and straightforward as she possibly could. She absolutely believed all this. And that this was the strongest economy America's ever had. And that everything was going as good as it could if the damn liberals would just let him do his thing. It's just like...
What are we doing to stop him? I mean, that is my
honestly, apparently the Tesla protests are the one thing holding back the U.S. economy.
Sure. Sure.
That was it. That was it. Because Tesla stock was going down. That was what really tanked the stock market.
Well, it was painting the dick on the side of the. There was really
ancient times.
Trump was okay until, and that's his kryptonite, right?
It is.
I mean, Trump has the best guys. He knows all the words, the best words, the biggest words. But paint a dick on the side of a Tesla truck, and poof, his numbers tank.
I mean that goes back to ancient Rome. Painting a dick in Pompeii. That's what brought the city down.
I was gonna say
the liberals tell you it's a volcano, but it was the dicks. So always the painted dicks
on the bathroom wall.
Will do strike again,
which apparently is a real thing. So okay.
This is the best evening that we've had on the show in forever, and I realize that there are probably some other people watching that were on the show previously, and I don't mean to dismiss your time on our show, but you did not have Hitler, Mao, Stalin three ways and drawing dicks on shit.
Greg Terry is here. And I don't know how you guys found out about our show, but I think it's because Greg Terry was here, and then I was in the live chat and I was saying hi and everybody. So Greg Terry was a guest here. So you are talking, in fact, about him. And I've got to tell you, that's been my experience too, which is he's a very mediocre guest. I don't. We've had him on a number of times. I've been on his show. I've got to say, it's like I get on his show and I'm just sort of like, when is this thing going to be over? It's like, oh, Putin's bad. Yeah. I heard. Okay. Oh, you almost got hit by a shaheed. Well, did you? No. So why is it?
But did you die?
Yeah. You're delivering humanitarian aid. Yeah. Well, did you know that my neighbor was yelling because she was short a roll of toilet paper, and I had the two squares. Perry. And again, he comes on our show when last minute, if the guest cancels, we'll see if he's free, and so.
Love it. Fluid.
Yeah, gets it
work.
Oh shoot, he knows my car too. Oh dear Lord.
Oh God.
Woo. Yeah, so it behooves us to try to engage. It's so frustrating at times. I don't mean to paint all with one brush too, because there have been some people I've had some interesting conversations with. We pushed back and forth, but the one today was just like, you dense motherfucker. Just like, and it's so hard because you can see that they truly believe, and it's an almost religious adherence to it. And there's no cracking that dam. There's no breaking through that. You need a foundational failure in that belief for that to all come crashing down. There's nothing else that's going to get through to them. And unless their whole worldview basically falls apart, which is an awful thing to have happen to someone, but unless that all comes apart and they realize they've been had, they're never going to break from it.
It's on its way, though, isn't it? Don't you think?
I think that I think that what we're looking at with the stoppage of shipments in from China and how that's going to hit us in the next few weeks, that's going to hit home for a lot of people. When you just can't buy some things. Like, you won't be able to buy certain things for your kids. You won't be able to buy stuff for you. There's going to be shelves that are empty. And I don't really foresee anything that anyone can do at this point to alleviate that, because the supply chain around the world is so massive and so relatively slow versus our need for instant gratification on shit that it's going to hit like a wall, a tsunami coming at us here. And we can already see that the ships are not out there. Even if they changed everything right now, today, you would still have weeks for ships to get loaded up in China or wherever and make their way to the United States. Those ships are not coming. There is nothing in the pipeline. And we're at the tail end of what we have on hand. So shit's about to get real.
Well, and the other thing is, of course, too, which is everybody who's involved in the production at every level is now terrified. They don't want to reinvest, so they're trying to figure out, how do I survive in this? And it's not going to be investing in a industry that Trump may wipe out. So is everybody going to start leaving these industries? No. But you're going to start seeing at the margins, you're going to start seeing people just like, if they were thinking of getting out, they're out now because it's getting too hard. It's going to get very, very lean for everybody along that entire chain.
I can tell you from firsthand knowledge of someone, I'm not going to name them and I'm not going to name the company, but they are a intermediate producer of something in the great supply chain. And they are shifting operations overseas to existing facilities they already have, but they're closing shop here because, one, the tariffs are making the overall import of their raw materials into the U.S. too expensive, and two, that once they have their product made, a lot of their stuff gets shipped overseas anyway, and then they're dealing with the reciprocal tariffs. So in order to cut all that out, they move their production into, say, Brazil or Germany. They're not paying that tariff for the raw materials. They're not paying any kind of reciprocal tariff to bring their stuff into the manufacturing centers that actually use their product. And it's already costing hundreds of jobs. It'll be thousands of jobs before the month is out. And it's not just there. It's across numerous industries. And it's very quiet right now. And you're not hearing a lot about it. And a lot of it won't go into effect fully for the next few weeks. But it's happening. And it's not going to come back afterwards. This isn't going to be reversed. They're going to realize they can make more money by having cheaper outsourced labor. They're not going to push that back to the U.S. And it's not incentivized. And so really a lot of this almost vestigial elements of industry that had stayed on, that had hung on to a U.S. foothold, are now those last little bits are going to get pushed out the door. And I don't think people realize just how universal this is going to be across our economy.
Well, and I think the very first economic lesson I ever gave my kids was that the dollar does not exist. There are a lot of things that may or may not exist, but it's useful to assume that they do. If you're into philosophy, as I am, does free will exist? I don't think it does. I think it's what's called determinism. I think, all of our actions are determined by things. There's no other agent. But it's useful to assume it does. And it allows us to do all sorts of things and have prisons and all this other stuff. Does randomness exist? No. but I still flip a coin to determine, you can still do that. It's not actually random, though, because that coin flip, whether it lands heads or tails, if you do it in a vacuum and have a robot that flips it and has the exact amount of pressure every time on that exact coin and every molecule's in the same place, you'll get the same result every single time. It's not random. So randomness does not exist, and that's actually a huge problem in cryptography, is how to mimic randomness. And computers have had a problem with that since they've started, because it doesn't exist that anyone's been able to use or quantify yet.
I do recall that. I barely passed it, but I do recall that.
Yeah,
that was an absolutely. Systems and Signals was an absolutely brutal course for me.
But it helps to assume it exists. It doesn't. Yes. It doesn't help to go around and there's no such thing as randomness. Well, then tell me what the weather's going to be in 3 days, or 4 days, or 5 days, whatever. Yeah. So the dollar does not exist. It's a piece of paper that represents a trust between us and the government that it can be used. And as long as we share that common trust, the dollar is useful. The ruble is printed on a piece of paper as well. The trust level of that is so low, you can't do much with it right now. Trade, businesses, all of that relies on trust. The entire economy relies on trust, and that you are getting what you... If a buddy of yours, a friend of yours, says, can you loan me $50? I'll pay you back, and you're going to do it because you trust them. They've established that trust. But if they don't pay you back the next time, you may hesitate.
Well, some of my buddies.
Some of my buddies.
There's a few, maybe not so much.
If there's a business that keeps giving you products that aren't as advertised as you thought they were, and they knew that you knew what you thought it was, you're not going to go back. The U.S. and our trust is its own commodity. It's its own thing that has value, and we have been squandering decades of that trust. Going from AAA rating to AA rating on bonds, people didn't understand how serious that was. And I'm sorry that the consequences weren't worse, because then we might take our debt and credit rating seriously. At this point, we've decided we'd rather suffer the consequences. Okay, well, that's where we're going to end up landing. Again, education. I think understanding a little bit more about how and why this is important would help us make better decisions. Well, we've gotten almost too comfortable. But if the debt rating falls anymore, if we move off the reserve currency, if China decides to call in all its debt, we are going to be facing so many problems. And the trust that we have built up over 2 centuries is, I was going to say gone. It feels like it's gone. It's not gone, but it is damaged to a level that, again, generations to fix, because it takes generations to build the kind of trust that I'm talking about. And we're going to
kind of trust that had the U.S. dollar and economy as the milestone for the rest of the world economy, that had the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, something that rival powers like Russia and China have salivated over the idea of ruining, and Trump is just delivering it to them on a silver platter. They're getting everything they could have wanted in that regard, at least economically.
Yep. And that's a little hard. The idea that Brinks could have been for... I got concerned about... can you guys still hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, perfect. The idea that something like Brinks was going to happen. Two Arab countries about 2 years ago said that they would no longer take the U.S. dollar for oil. I was just like, okay, nobody's that stupid. So either there's something symbolic about that, or it's a precursor to a move of trying to get all of them to do that, because just 2 OPEC countries doing that is really a bad idea for those 2 countries. All of them doing that. And so now, if there really is a plan to do that, which it turns out there was, why they telegraph it by 2 going early? But it could have just been a test balloon just to see what happens if the U.S. retaliates. We did do that. We retaliated the last time they did that against British Petroleum. we retaliated by overthrowing the democratically elected government of Iran. So we have had bad reactions to stuff like that before, but at any rate, yeah, we are economically handing Russia victory after victory after victory, and they were so close to collapsing like the former Soviet Union, which I think was the plan. It worked in Afghanistan. Ronald Reagan deserves a significant amount of credit for the collapse of the Soviet Union, because I don't think he personally figured it out. Somebody explained to him, clearly understood.
Clearly someone on the staff.
Someone on the staff explained to him, you know, we're a capitalist country. They cannot outproduce us. Let's get into a production war.
Yeah.
Okay, producing what? Producing nuclear weapons. Well, that may not have been a great idea, but the Star Wars program was never intended to work. We can't do it in today's technology. He knew full well it couldn't. It was designed to scare the living daylights out of them so that they would produce 10 times more missiles, which they couldn't afford to produce. And then after a war in Afghanistan, they collapsed. It worked.
Not to mention tanks and ships and all kinds of things they couldn't possibly afford the infrastructure for to maintain.
Now, there's a flip side to that, which is China is a dictatorship. Try not to get into trade wars with dictatorships, and here's why. Our economy moves like the Titanic. You see an iceberg, and you're like, okay, we're going to turn, but we're still probably going to hit the thing. Their economy can move like an F-35 if Ping wants it to, because his economy will do as instructed. There are a lot of downsides to that, but the upside is you're going to win a trade war. You don't get into it. And Trump should have learned this the last time, because he got his ass handed to him the last time. Instead, he's like, you know, I think what happened last time was I didn't put enough money into the trade. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, China does have a few problems that may hamper it. It's hard to know how bad their economy is. But the one-child policy has done severe damage to their economy because there are not enough families. They're actually shrinking.
Yep.
They have not recovered production since their zero COVID policy. So they haven't ramped up production. Wildfires in, you think wildfires are bad in the US. They've been much worse in China. They haven't been in the highly populated areas. Where they've been is where they produce their food.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a problem with food production. They have, the list of problems that they have right now, and there have been protests against Ping in an unprecedented style. I mean, protests in the U.S. is one thing; it's a free country here.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they think that they can win the trade war because China is having serious economic troubles. There is indications that they're having some economic troubles. They've been having them for a while. They've been the empty buildings and all that other shit. But yeah, I'm sorry. What were we gonna?
If Trump had not killed in his first term the Trans-Pacific trade agreement, they would actually have the leverage to economically isolate China and actually win what they're trying to do with it, because they could just muscle in there and deny them the markets that China needs to use instead of going to the US. It's such a stupid move. It just boggles the mind. It's like the first thing he did was shoot himself in the foot.
The problem was he didn't realize that it wasn't a trade deal. He said, this is a pretty poor trade deal. You're right. You're right. Trump got something right. The TPP was not a really good trade deal. It wasn't a terrible one, but it wasn't a really good one either. It wasn't a particularly good trade deal. The TPP, however, allowed us to do one thing. There was just one part of the TPP that we cared about at all.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that if anybody violated any trade practices against one TPP nation, all the TPP nations could embargo them.
Yep.
In any other setting, this would be an act of war. With the TPP, it's just a trade deal. But what that means is now when China keeps stealing our intellectual property, we say, oh, they just violated, and all of China's trade partners stopped trading with them overnight. And Trump's like, well, this is a bad trade deal. No shit, but it's a spectacular foreign policy deal.
Which was the whole damn point.
And that was the only reason we made, that was that. And everybody on knew it. And it was so hard to get some people on because they're like, we're not as interested. China's not stealing our IP. It's like, we need trade with China. And that was where we had trust. And we said, look, where the U.S. side with us, we'll take care of you, but we need everybody on board. And we did it. I think it was 19 countries. And then Trump goes in and goes, oh, terrible trade deal. Dude. Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry. That's
couldn't see the bigger strategy.
Yeah. And it was funny because you could tell at some point somebody explained it to him in a way that he got, because like, oh, we're going to do the TPP now. It's like, oh, no. So welcome to the party.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It'll be like, NAFTA 2.0. Just as long as he gets to name it, he doesn't care what the terms are. He's just going to come back in his second term and bitch about how terrible the trade agreement was with Mexico and Canada and say, what idiot negotiated our thing? You're the idiot. You're the one who brought this upon us. You're that stupid fucker.
As long as I get to name it. I remember the day that I was excited that I got to name our Star Citizen alert system because I came up with an acronym for Eat Ass. So I can kind of understand the excitement that he must feel. Look, I get to name something.
Well, and he put really gaudy, he put the faces of deported immigrants all along the White House lawn. If you can find a picture of that,
allegedly,
put that up.
We actually don't have any proof that half those people are even who he says they are. Like
that's a good point. We don't know.
He may have just grabbed pictures and names and put them out there. There's no verification. There's no documentation of it. So
isn't that the guy who thinks a really police can have a dad?
Well, ChatGPT writes their briefs. I don't see why ChatGPT wouldn't be doing the it's
none of them are real. They're all AI generated. Their staff wouldn't have any idea.
Trying to read some of these executive orders. So I'm dyslexic, so I have to I concentrate really hard, and I can read very well, but it's a lot of concentration. So you'll see me concentrating, but then when it gets to like the typos or the misspellings or anything like that, it throws me like there's no, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, did I compose the sentence correct? I got to go back. And I was like, no, it's just, this has been written by a 12th grader.
Yeah.
And by the way, I am legally allowed to, you know how psychologists can't, I'm allowed to, I'm a teacher. I have the training. I'm there to, I'm like, and the last one was higher than 12th grade, but most of what he writes has been actually it's been lower than 10th grade level, but the best that he does is 10th grade level.
Honestly, the ones that are actually well written, I'm pretty sure he has not written. I'm pretty sure that has been put together by staff for him. The ones he writes are the ones that are just absolutely bonkers, random, like 3-word sentence in the middle of the executive order for something that popped into his fucking mind. And dogs are pretty. Oh, okay, Mr. President, excellent executive order. That was very much, yeah, that was certainly a thing, sir.
The one that he did yesterday was really terrifying, and it's in conjunction. There's 2 of them that are really bad.
The one for the military.
Yeah. Basically trying to end run posse comitatus.
Yeah.
But in the other one, the really interesting thing about it was he was talking about illegal aliens, and he said that. Or no, it may have been for the breakdown that he did, because the White House has been doing breakdowns of each of these as they come out, the quick fact sheet, and one of them said something along the lines of that they needed to arrest anybody who was trying to hinder the administration from doing its job, including people who were lying about his poll numbers, like the latest ABC Washington Post poll, and that one guy at Fox News. And this is, I'm quoting it. And that one guy at Fox News should all be arrested and thrown in jail or maybe deported. And I'm like, oh no, he said, and no, charged with election interference. I was just like, you're still trying to charge people. It's like the election's over. You won, and you're still trying to charge people.
He's still trying to win the 2020 election. He's still like, somehow time will be reversed. He'll magically be declared, emperor of the world or whatever the hell goes on in his head between the two.
Which would make this his third term. So it doesn't even make sense for him to be doing that shit.
He's already selling merch for 2028.
Oh dear.
And his followers are buying it.
Yeah.
Which is going to be interesting because it's all made in China and none of it's getting shipped over here. So they're going to have to wait a long ass time before any of that shit gets here.
Like us and the flags that are made in the USA.
Goddamn flags. I didn't even get a chance to order one.
Twice a day, I send emails and I'm like, what's the status? What's the status? Anyway, sorry, we were talking about red hats or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was
insane.
That what rock band was that? It was the Dropkick Murphys. That great. Yeah, there was a MAGA guy in the group who goes, okay, wait. The audience was starting to, and it's a good thing he did something about it too. I've got my own story about that with Meatloaf, but because Meatloaf's drummer came to Boston and was almost murdered. Meatloaf saved his life. Long story. And it was literally at the Wang Center. I did not make that up. It was the Wang Center. I knew you gentlemen would appreciate it. So the Dropkick Murphys, there was a MAGA guy there, and it started a hustle, and the guy stopped the concert. I said, hey, listen, just man to man here. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to have you be in any trouble. What's your name? It was, okay. So what do you like about Trump? He goes, well, he's for the United States. He goes, he's for the United States. So are we. He said, we are for the United States. Everything that we have, said, we bought here in the United States. He goes, here's a shirt. Picks up a Dropkick Murphys shirt. It says, made in the U.S. Because that's what it says right here on this shirt. Goes, now here's the deal we're going to make. You take off your hat and look and see who made it. And if it was made in the U.S., goes, I'll wear that hat. Goes, if it wasn't made in the U.S., you give me that hat. I'm gonna burn it, and you're gonna wear my shirt. And they go, look, it's made in China. Swap the shirt and the hat right then and there. So you can find the footage. It's spectacular. It's online. It was really well done.
I'm also thinking of the footage where they had a neo-Nazi jump up on stage and was given the Nazi salute. And you can imagine exactly how well that went. I think we shared the clip at one point some months back.
It's Dropkick Murphys. Just some background. Those guys, they grew up in the 80s and the early 90s. And there were neo-Nazi skinheads in Boston. So they frequently, the punks and the skins got into it. And I guarantee you those dudes have seen some shit outside of their shows. So I know exactly how that went.
Yeah. But if you can find the clip, if it has been taken down from YouTube, someone always puts it back up somewhere else. It's out there.
So the executive order that he issued last night, and they just keep getting worse, and it's really terrifying. The executive order that he issued last night, strengthening and unleashing America's law enforcement to pursue criminals and protect innocent citizens. Again, my father was a lawyer, and when I got my degree in philosophy, I had two concentrations. It was law and religion. And one of the problems is, what do words mean? And we have a very hard time with that, because every word means something different to everybody. If I say table, everybody who's listening just thought of something. And there are probably a number of things in common. Probably, like maybe 4 legs. It's going to be flat on top. It's probably going to be an average height. It's going to be different colors for different people, different materials. Some people had 20 legs, and it's this big, long thing. Somebody probably thought of the table when they were in kindergarten, that they just had those made out of the play school things. So everybody thought of something different, and that's a simple concrete. So that's a simple concrete thing, is a table. So when we start talking about aggressive, when we start talking about what's aggressive enforcement of the law, what does that mean? I mean, so the crime rate in the U.S. is, compared to where it is was at the 80s, still at basically an all-time low. It goes up and down from year to year. There's fluctuations, but it's 1/10 of what it was in the 80s. So he's like, we're in this huge crime wave. And he has to say that because that's how he gets people to vote for him. If people didn't believe that, and I'm glad to some extent that people can, because it's our ability to not be complacent. It's our ability to say, I want better for my children than I had, that makes us say, how do we get the crime rate even lower? It's still too high, but it is 1/10 of what it was in the 1980s. That was 40 years ago. Look at it's gone. It's been going down. We've been doing a good job. We don't need to sell out the entire country over this fear stuff. But he has said, well, the only way that we can stop crime is to do what other countries do and aggressively go after people who break the law. Well, is that what the Brits do? Most of their officers don't have guns, if I recall. Canadians, most of their officers don't carry guns. Norway, just about everybody has a gun, and nobody, the police there aren't armed. These are all we have the most heavily armed, already militarized police force in the Western world. The problem can't be either. The problem is that Americans are inherently more criminal, homicidal, sociopathic than everybody in the rest of the world, or it's something other than we don't have a strong enough police force. It's one of those. So, anyways, now he's talking about there's so much wrong with this. First is saying that they want to hold, this is actually number 5, but hold state and local officials accountable. The Attorney General shall pursue all legal remedies and enforcement measures to enforce the rights of Americans impacted by crime, and shall prioritize prosecution of any applicable federal violations of criminal law with respect to state and local jurisdiction. So now, like the judge this is completely in response to the Wisconsin judge. So what he's saying is he is directing the Attorney General to aggressively go after, at the state level, anybody who works for the state who is getting in his way. Then, in order to assist, he has empowered them by, let's see, where'd it go? He's empowered state and local law officials by, let's see, getting rid of the agreements. We'll get to that in a second. Where's the other one? Okay, he wants to create a Homeland Security task force that will be presumably empowered to go into states and act and do what, I don't know, but we saw him kidnapping people in the mommy vans, just going up and kidnapping people off the streets of Portland. So I would assume it's that. But he's also authorized the use of military assets to be given, surplus military assets to be given to police precincts as the Attorney General sees needed. So the Attorney General is going to say, who here likes Donnie? Who here thinks we've been doing a good job? Who thinks Donnie's a good boy? And those people are going to see military equipment flowing into their police. the states like Massachusetts, which he actually called out specifically as being a sanctuary state, are not going to see that going into their police. Within 90 days of this order, the Secretary of Defense, in coordination with the Attorney General, shall determine how military and national security assets. Okay, so that's the FBI and that's the NSA. Training, non-lethal capabilities, and personnel. Does that mean troops? It's not supposed to. Can most effectively be utilized to prevent crime. So what he is saying right there is the Attorney General is now empowered to deploy assets, and we certainly consider troops to be a military asset.
Yep.
To local and state jurisdictions to assist state law enforcement as they see fit. And he makes sure to bring up the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which is when there's a disagreement as to when a state and a federal law collide, it's the federal law that wins each and every time. That's the supremacy clause of the Constitution. That came up when cannabis was being legalized by states, but was still illegal at the federal level. In this case, he's bringing it up because he doesn't want any uppity states to sit there and say, no, we don't want to use a militarized police force to start terrorizing our citizens. He's going to say, well, you have to because I'm telling you to, and supremacy lets me do that. Yay, that was last night.
Yeah. I mean, not that he's been a big fan of listening to the Constitution to begin with, and DHS, even from his first term, is really turned over to such a group of thugs that they're really thrilled with kicking in people's doors and being able to go wherever they want, take whoever they want, grab them. Or the story that came out today of them kicking the wrong door and deciding to confiscate all of the laptops, cell phones, and all the money they could find in the house. I just took it. Not even the person they're supposed to be there for. They just basically robbed a house with 20 guys at gunpoint, robbed 3 women. And they have there's no course to go to get their money back or any of their belongings. And the state is basically, sorry, not the state, DHS has basically said, tough shit. It's ours now.
So there was a question asked about posse comitatus. Well, that's what makes this interesting. And this is the boiled frog syndrome, which of course isn't true. But again, speaking of things that aren't true, but we act as if they are. Boiled frog syndrome. So, you stick a frog in a pot of water, you keep up raising the temperature, and the frog doesn't notice as long as it's done incrementally and slow until eventually you boil the frog alive. Nothing in there explicitly violates posse comitatus because he does not say that he's deploying troops. But he absolutely left the option open and said they should assess what we should deploy, including personnel. And that's why I asked, does personnel mean troops? That's why I was talking about language earlier, because personnel is a cute choice of words. This was phrased very explicitly to avoid violating posse comitatus while permitting him, at least in the text, to violate posse comitatus, so that if and when he violates it, then he can say, oh, nobody argued when we brought that up. Well, that's because it doesn't explicitly violate it. So, and he's done that incrementally with everything that's gotten him to where he is today. And
he basically left it as a gray area and then punted it over to DOJ to actually implement it, so that later on, he said, I had no idea they were going to send tanks into that elementary school. Just because I wrote the blank check and told them to go do it and said crush as many people as you could. I mean, I don't even know how you guys get this stuff. Send tanks to that school.
And that's why I think they got rid of Elon because of the poll numbers and because he was starting to piss off a number of people. But Elon was one of the few people. Trump will throw anybody under the bus. We already know that. He will throw anybody under the bus. Elon is one of the few people he hired explicitly for that reason. He hired Elon because he knew that all of these cuts, which is exactly what he wanted and how he wanted it done, all of this was going to be really unpopular, and he needed somebody to blame for it. That's why he was willing to be in the humiliating position of sitting at his desk. The president was sitting down, and this guy is standing. His little boy is going up to, "You're not the president." It's like, literally, that's happening. And Trump put up with it. It's because Elon was serving a different purpose. Elon's purpose is to take the heat for when all of this fails. And Trump says, hey, I did what any American would do. I put my faith in the most successful businessman in history. Who would have thought that he would do this? That's it. Yep. And they kicked him out early before implementing that. They can still implement it. It's just not as effective. It's more effective if they fire him. But when Social Security starts failing, they'll say, "Well, this is the real reason we got rid of Musk. We tried to let him leave with dignity and say that he was getting back to his projects, but really, it's there you go. Musk is in for a world of hurt."
Yeah, well, I think all of us are with what's been cut and what's going to end up happening. Not being able to predict future storms, hurricanes, not being able to regulate the safety of food, not being able to even warn people when there's an E. coli outbreak. They wouldn't even tell us what brand of lettuce it was that killed those folks.
Yeah, it was the Food and Drug Administration that caught that China was putting cadmium into products that they were, selling to, and that was not that long ago. That was, when I say not that long, I mean, it was 10, 15 years ago.
Something like that. Yeah. Sounds right.
Yeah. And the reason I say not that long ago, you'd say that's a long time. We've known cadmium is a big no-no. I mean, that's huge. That's a serious, I think it's a heavy metal. And it is. Yeah. Okay. So it's a heavy metal, with all of which are no-nos. And, they'd been poisoning people, not deliberately, but they didn't give a shit. They've been poisoning people for, decades on this stuff. They knew, and it was the Food and Drug Administration that found it. Late. They've been doing it for a while, but hey, the Food and Drug Administration has been underfunded because, well, you don't really need food. As you said.
I mean, look, the rich people who are going to be the beneficiaries of all these cuts aren't dependent on the same food supply that basically the rest of us are. So it doesn't matter to them if you're eating lead. Doesn't matter to them if, your milk's laced with fentanyl or some other dumb thing that's going to end up killing you and your kids. Doesn't matter because you don't matter to them. Your death doesn't matter to them. They can replace you just with another cog in the machine. In fact, they'd like it if there was a few less of you.
No, well, they'd probably want more of you, but that they like the idea of you being lead poisoned because that makes you more complacent in your addle-minded until the paranoia kicks off and you go start killing people, but you'll be killing people in your area. So,
right, they don't have to worry about things down in the work.
They don't have to. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So that was an interesting drop last night, and it's a great time to be a news show. I would rather it not be. People always you ask or Jon Stewart would always talk about when Obama won the election, and Jon Stewart said on an interview, said, "Well, people keep coming up. Aren't you disappointed that Obama won? You'd have so much more material to work with if it was McCain." He goes, "No, not really." It's like, I mean, is Obama maybe, going to do more politics one way or another? Yeah, sure. But the system is still absurd. He's still going to be participate in the absurdity, and there's still going to be, he's like, so I'd rather the candidate who's going to fix things. And my show will be fine either way. And so I'm sitting there going like, it's our show. We've been, ramping up the number of shows we do because the shit's changing at a very rapid pace. It's good for the show. It's not, I'd rather people didn't have to watch that. I'd rather not have to tell people like, okay, this just happened.
Welcome to my life.
Just waking up every morning going, what fucking thing will it be today?
Right? What fresh hell is this going to be today?
Yep.
I would much rather be in a position where it's like, I got nothing, so here's 10 minutes of me playing the guitar.
or Mikey, the fans demand Mikey.
Yeah, or that, like, this is my cat. This is my cat laying in the window. This is my cat laying on my face.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Rio Cloud. If we could only live in less interesting times.
My co-host signed off for years. May you live in interesting times. And I'm like, okay, I am banning that sign off. And we finally, yeah. So about 3 months ago, we banned it. We're like, no more. And at first, he was giving me a hard time. I was like, you know what? You were right to ban it. I was just like, yes, I was. He's a trucker, and he's been doing pretty well. But it's like I can imagine his industry now.
Yeah. I've got a good friend of mine who's a dispatcher for one of the bigger companies, and again, I'm not going to name it because politics and shit. But they're anticipating some pretty big reductions, probably a lot of layoffs, just because there isn't cargo coming in, and if they can't make money, they're not going to pay people to sit around. Just is what it is, unfortunately.
So let's see. I saw there was a question. Titten Ernest I asked a question about how much the suit costs because I brought that up earlier.
Yeah, so, he already did that bit.
Well, no, I didn't. I didn't explain why it's 400. So when I first became a YouTuber, I had a mentor. He had another channel. The partner stole the channel. There was all this stuff, stole 60 grand out of the channel and made off with it. And he kept producing it while having locked the other guy out. And I'm watching the show, and it goes from having like pink and white wall, and it's that pink like fiberglass kind of wall stuff, to then there's a corner there and there's nothing in the room, to this gorgeous set, and the guy is wearing a different sports coat every single night, and the show looks spectacular. But I was like, yeah, I think I know where that half of the money went.
Yeah.
And so I was asked, there was a troll who was giving me a hard time, and he's a spectacular troll. He's a rival for position of top troll that I know, and he comes up with some mean and nasty things to say, and he goes, and he said, so what do you think's happened to the money? I said, I think he spends that money on $400 suits that he's wearing every night. And then he's just like, oh, how do you know the suit's 400? You don't know where he got it from. Did you used to tailor suits? Did you? I was just like, dude, look, he's wearing a good cut. He goes, well, I guess we'll just call you Nick $400 Soutter. And I was just like, that's good.
Yeah,
that's fucking good. And I was like, what the hell do I do about that? And I had never streamed with a jacket on or anything like that. So the next day I streamed with this.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was, we changed my name to Nick $400 Soutter. And that was the name on the show. And I went by that. My Twitter account changed to that. We changed everything, Nick $400 Soutter. And I was later talking to that troll. He's like, you fucking asshole. He goes, oh, that would have been a great troll if it had pissed you off. Instead, you leaned into it. I was just like, yeah. So I put on the coat, and I was going to wear it for a week. That was 5 years ago. This is the coat. So that's where the $400 suit comes from, the Nick $400 Soutter. Plus, like I said, it was actually only $200, but that's another thing that we don't discuss. That they know on the back end. The producers all know on the back end because there have been incidents. It's only sexual harassment if you get caught. Sometimes I stand up, I forget the camera's on. Things happen.
Yeah, we've definitely never had anything like that ever happen to us, right, Big Sarge?
Oh, now I have to hear that story. I have to hear that story.
Oh, that is Big Sarge's story to tell. I cannot do it justice, sir.
Everything was pixelated.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
Yeah, he's just worried I'm just going to go, you know what? Let's go to tape. Throw something on there. Oh, really? You say that's the case, huh? Well, let's take a look. Let's see what the audience thinks. Let's
got the little like electric crayon. The automatic highlighter that follows you around.
Oh dear. So I don't know. That's and I'm going to need to get going in about I'm going to try to leave here 9 Eastern. So that's got a few minutes left if you guys had anything else you wanted to talk about. But I mean that order last night, and I'm expecting the next one is. I mean, at some point he has not. The live chat brought this one up too, which is he has not instituted martial law, but that's what this is for.
Yeah. They had his little decision about, Pam Bondi and Pete Hegseth were supposed to do a report on, the feasibility of implementing the Insurrection Act and how it should be done and whatnot. And that day went, and everyone's like, oh, see, he's not going to do it. It's just like,
no, they released the report and said there was no reason for it.
That one I called wrong. So I said, look, and I still stand by what I said. I said, look, the only reason he asked them is because he already knows the answer. They're yes men. They're going to do what they're told. So he asked them because he wants cover when he does it, that he says. And so I was just like, when they come back, I said, it's happening. And then they came back and said no. And I was just like, okay.
Yeah.
That caught me off guard. Now, they didn't do that independently. They did not. I'm sorry. They did not do that independently. So Trump said no. Now, was this all just to quell the liberals and whatever? Was this? I don't know. Was he planning on it and changed his mind? I don't know. That
no, he doesn't.
Caught me off guard.
I know his followers love to scream that he's playing 3D chess all the times, but he does not.
No, he does not. He does not.
He's very reactionary, and he reacts in the moment to things. So this had to have been either by polling numbers they knew were going to come out, they were going to be really bad and was going to really damage the support, and it would look like he's cracking down because of the support numbers, or it was some other element of that. There was something right then immediately. Like he hits the shiny ball in front of him. That's it. Yep. It's like my dog with a tennis ball. That tennis ball comes up. There is nothing else in this universe that matters or exists besides ball.
That's a good way. That's a really Yep. And he's had that with the Ukraine. He is gonna bail on that because he's like, oh, this is a complicated situation. Which it actually isn't a complicated situation, but it certainly isn't the situation he thought it was.
Well, he thought he was gonna just have them all just agree, like, oh, of course, Mr. Trump, we'll just cede half our country, and we're gonna give you the mineral rights for all time to all of our land. I mean, in his head, that sounded like a great deal.
And I love how whenever he comes, and it is, they've said this. So this was leaked, was that all his staff, all the people around him have figured out that if you want your agenda to succeed, you have to be the last one to speak.
Yes.
So he always goes by whatever's the last one. And you'll notice, you can see him doing that. So when he talks to Putin, his position is and remains for a period that Ukraine has a lot of responsibility in what happened, and they have no cards, and what. Then he talks to Zelensky, and he comes out of that meeting with, "We may have to double the sanctions on Russia," and all, and it's just sort of like, oh my!
At the end of things, the only time he sticks to things is when he's personally offended, and then gets mad about it, and then won't do whatever action because he's angry and being obstinate. But as far as like a policy thing, he's a flag in the wind, just going whichever way the last breeze blows.
Yeah.
It's
Yep. It's and everyone does. It reminds me of the movie Being There, which if you haven't seen it, it's an interesting piece. It's basically satire. It's this wealthy guy owns a mansion, has all these people, and his gardener is, very low intelligence, can barely function. All he can do really is garden. And the man dies, and he doesn't know what to do because he can't really form a life of his own. He can't do anything. And then he ends up getting swept up into these situations that grow increasingly large. And all he does is talk about gardening because that's all he knows. But everyone else sees it as a metaphor for and then he becomes this messianic figure, and he's being elevated to where he's now going to be with the president of the United States. And the presidents are just like, okay, I've heard from all these advisors, but I want to hear from you. What do you think I should do? There's a time to cut the branches of the tree, and there's a time to let it go. And he's like, oh, you're right. And that's that's Trump, is or the people who follow Trump. He's just there like, whatever he says, it just doesn't matter. I took a dump off the Eiffel Tower while reading Forbes magazine because I like Tesla and cherries. And people are like, that's
the most random thing ever.
That is a president. That's
unprecedented.
Let's get behind this cherry eating dump. Trump.
Well, it's like it immediately calls to mind the infomercial he did on the White House lawn for Tesla, and or Tesla, as he kept mispronouncing it. And he's there like trying to talk about the features, and he's just like, "It has computer." Like, okay, all right, yeah, all right. This is a fucking train wreck. Or like he couldn't figure out how to start a car because he's never had to drive a car before, I guess. So he's always had drivers. He's always getting, taken everywhere. He had no idea how to operate it. And Musk is like trying to show him where the button is because it's a push start. So all he has to do is hit the fucking button. And that was beyond his reach.
It's even less complicated than a mechanical automobile where you put the key in and turn it, and then you wait until the thing turns over.
He couldn't get there.
Just press a button.
It's all computer.
I got news for everybody. This man has never bought eggs either. So,
well, when he was growing up, he probably had to crank start his first chariot. In any other context, Trump is actually a tragic figure. His dad really didn't give two shits about him and made sure he knew it.
Yeah.
And he is emotionally stunted at the age of 12. That's roughly where his emotional intelligence level is. So he thinks in terms of big stick and yada yada yada. But his EQ is at about the age of 12. You take a look at Melania, who by some measures maybe lucked out. I mean, she's got a lot of money and she's but by other metrics, worst life ever. Yeah. Well, I mean, she's got the money to do things if she wants to, and she could leave him, and she probably will. She renegotiated what she did for this term. She was smart. She's not stupid. She renegotiated the terms of their prenups so that she would not divorce him until after he was out of the White House in exchange for a huge payout. So she's that's why she stuck around. But you take a look at, he doesn't have any real friends. he can't trust anybody. He thinks he can because he thinks he's so charismatic. Nobody would. I mean, when people betray him, he is genuinely surprised. He's like, what?
And he's genuinely like angry. Like, how could this happen? How could they do this? Just
the sycophants with no loyalty that I hired explicitly because they're unethical just betrayed me.
How could that
be?
be?
He had 4 years of that from 2016 to 2020. You think he would have fucking learned his lesson by then?
Well,
how is this still a surprise to you now?
There's the picture of his former staff from Trump 1 from day one, and it was they'd penciled out all the ones that had betrayed him, wrote a book or something. There was one person in the entire picture. There's 40-something advisors and staff members. One of them that didn't in some way betray him before the end of his term.
and he was also 25th. They actually did have enough of a cabinet to do the 25th Amendment. And this is something we learned after the fact. This was in Woodward's book, but he was 25th. The cabinet just failed to actually do the meeting, and the reason was because they went to Mike Pence and said, we're about to 25th them, and you're about to become president. And he said, I will not support this action. Now, they don't need his support congressionally, but if they're about to make a man president, and he basically says, I will not serve, you've got a problem. So they decided not to 25th them. But he found out about that. And so now, if the number one, and loyalty was always an issue, but now it's the only issue. It's like, okay, so you basically, so you took your family to the beach, found a dead whale. You took your Swiss Army knife, sawed the whale's head off.
As one does.
Put the whale's head onto your car, strapped it down, put your family in, drove from like Great Barrington or wherever they were to
and this sounds like the most insane thing ever.
And with whale juices flying in the face of your children. We're describing the whale juice. That's what they said. That's what they called it.
Apparently fell off too. Somewhere along the highway.
Yep.
It's like a National Lampoon script that was rejected.
I don't care about any of that. What I care about is, will you be completely loyal to me at all costs?
And the worm inside of his brain said yes, as long as we enact my policies.
Well, yeah.
It's like a fucking Simpsons cartoon. Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
I love the delay too. Like it's still
I'm doing this, but you can like imagine it in your head. It's like little yellow skinned characters and shit.
So I think he realized the 25th would be a genuine threat to him. So he's picked people. But now if these people betray him, he's going to be surprised again because he spent so much extra time dealing with the problem. What would it take for them to betray him? I don't know. But they are, they're sycophants. They're the kind of people that are most likely to eventually betray you when push comes to shove. Everybody, the interesting thing, one of the best lines, it's the uncorroborated, I believe it, but of course I believe it, when him telling the general that everybody at Arlington Cemetery was a bunch of suckers. That seems to be roughly his mindset and what he would think about that, because they sacrificed their lives for nothing by his metrics.
Right.
By his metrics, that's exactly what they did. And he hires people around him who use those same metrics. And the problem is, and this is why this gets back to what I was saying earlier about how many times we've been heading down the path to World War III and then something happens. Boats like the United States are far harder to sink than people realize. And one of the reasons is because it requires the collusion and collaboration of a lot of people, some of whom are reasonably intelligent, some of whom are complete idiots, and some of whom are almost Machiavellian. One of the things that people said about Hitler that they liked so much about him was that he was kind of stupid. and that they felt like he would never be able to get one over on them. So they elected him because they wanted a man you could have a beer with. It was the exact same. People said the same thing about George
Bush
W.
too.
Bush. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that the people who also wanted to create the Third Reich, who wanted to completely, throw off the shackles from World War I and basically once again try to conquer the world. Those people found a useful idiot in Hitler, who was not an idiot. He wasn't stupid, but he wasn't brilliant either, and he made a lot of stupid moves. And when you take a look at the Blitzkrieg, the only reason that worked is because it was so dumb, nobody actually thought somebody would try something like that. And so it worked. And then when it stopped working, he blamed his generals. And that's sort of what's happening here, which is everybody's still in shock and awe. They're like, you can ignore a judge's order? What? You can announce on national television, you can ask a hostile country to get the emails of your opponent and release them? Isn't that like, are you violating the Hatch Act or something like that? No, the Hatch Act is a different one. Sorry, that's the
it's a different thing he's violated.
Yeah, the Hatch Act. Yeah, he's violated all sorts of them. And I think right now it's just reorienting ourselves to this, and then realizing that, you know what, it's the system is still the system, and we still protest and we still get people in there who are going to refuse to. And the reality is there's enough incompetence in there that is very hard for them to successfully pull off the shit that they're trying to do. And they're having some success. They're having more than I would have hoped, less than I thought. Not by much, but it's less than I've thought. And he's pulled back times that he probably should have, if he really wants to take over the U.S. and create a fascist dictatorship. There's opportunities he's missed. And he's missed them because he's not bright enough to figure out what he's doing, like the fire, what's its
Reichstag
fire?
fire.
Reichstag fire, thank you.
Yep.
There's a number of opportunities he's missed. And one of the reasons is he's got so much on his plate. He is overburdening the U.S. people. He is overburdening the courts so that nobody can see what he does, and so he can get away with so much. But the courts are overburdening him back, and he's got so many lawsuits and so many people with competing advice and people that he can't trust because they're all backstabbing and they want one thing, his attention and his favor. And they will tell him what he wants to hear, and that even he knows isn't always a blessing. So he's sitting there trying to figure out how is he going to accomplish his things, and he's not really bright enough to do it, and he hasn't surrounded himself with enough people that are bright enough to do it, because the people who are bright enough to do that usually are bright enough to avoid people like Trump, and they certainly don't give Trump what he wants, which is loyalty. So it's a very delicate balance to successfully create a fascist dictatorship. Trump is within the margins. He may have done it. I don't know yet. We'll find out. But that's why when there are people who are sitting there going like, oh, how can he look, they're screwing stuff up themselves left and right. There's screw ups on both sides. We do not know how this is going to play out, but it's people sort of make it seem like a cop out. I'm like, maybe there'll be a Hail Mary. I'm not counting on a Hail Mary. I'm counting on the fact that they're human beings too, and that they're flawed, and that they're, deliberately flawed. He has surrounded himself with some idiots. There are some people, mostly at the Heritage Foundation, who are pulling all the strings and trying to get this to work. But for them, it's like herding cats.
Yeah.
So
they've got a plan in place, and they've got arguably some incredibly dumb people to try to execute it with. And I can only begin to imagine how much of their day is honestly just day drinking at this point. Just like he tweeted what? He put the secret plan on X.
Yeah,
he did that. Just fucking great.
Except is just I couldn't have.
Like you expect him to not be good, but you didn't quite expect him to be quite this stupid. Especially when the technical stuff comes in.
Pete. Baby. Oh, Pete. My heart just. Oh, can you hear that, Pete? Do you feel that? That's why I love you, babe. I love you. Stay Secretary of Defense, please. Just hang in there. Don't listen. Don't, Pete. I feel your doubt. I get it. People are hating on you right now. It's okay. It's okay. Did you know, Pete, that you can put classified plans on Twitter too? It's out there. It's out there. Smoke signals. Skywriting. Learn about skywriting. Pete, baby, you and me all the way. Let's do it. You stay right where you are, Pete. You hang in there for what you know is right. You are a blessing to this nation. And I am thankful every day that you are Secretary of Defense. Don't ever change, Pete. You be you.
Oh, there you have it. Honestly, I can't follow that act.
No. I think that's a convenient stopping point because nobody's going to top that. Not even with Flash fan fiction.
Yeah, I'm going to need to get going too. So it was a delight to be approached by you guys, and I have a number of friends. Blonde Bombsheller, I think, had mentioned you guys a couple of times too, and of course I'm friends with Terry. I was friends with Greg Terry until the beginning of the show.
So
all of a sudden,
drawing dicks on his car.
Yeah.
Well, I just saw it's like on Twitter, on like Instagram. He's unfriending me. I was like, was this because I said you're a mediocre guest? Was this about the 2 squares thing or the 4 squares toilet paper thing? Because I didn't think it was that bad, but apparently. Anyways, it was you guys reached out, and it was I think you're absolutely right that this was a great collab. So I really appreciate having you guys having me on. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Something we can do again.
You can come back anytime. This was my sides are going to be a little more sore than they were earlier today from laughing so hard.
Well, I would be delighted, and I will if I may shill. You guys can always find me at youtube.com/InTimeShow or that InTime Show official. And we're a news and educational program. So, and I think laughter is an important part of education. Having fun is an important part of education. But we're about trying to understand what's going on in the world, trying to put it in context, trying to be sober but not be terrified, and then sit there and say, what have we got in front of us, and let's deal with it. And we're an international one. We cover all sorts of things. Boris Johnson was a lot of fun. He was no Pete Hegseth, but he was still a lot of fun.
I mean, who is?
Who is? Nobody's except it's just going to be, and he got the makeup room. Keep the makeup room, Pete. Keep the makeup room. Essential. Professionals like you and I, we know they're going to mock you for it, but they don't have to sit in that desk with the rest of the cabinet, do they? No, you don't go to a cabinet meeting without getting that hair just right, because otherwise. Well, what? You think people are going to listen to your ideas? No. You're going to need to look good.
He's there to be pretty.
Believe me, you're going to need to look good. That is the cornerstone of your survival. I don't see anything else keeping you. This ain't Fox and Friends, okay? I'm just saying. So come join us. Titan Uranus in the live chat is actually our head mod. That is our head mod. Just to give you an idea.
It's an actual person in the comment section. I'm just over here laughing. I'm sorry.
He's our head mod / head troll. He is the other of the 2 trolls that I know. Yes,
we are. We're all definitely going to end up in El Salvador.
Hola, Juan.
Yeah, you're gonna have to work on my Spanish.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
I have
This
As
guy,
much
this
as I can
guy with
wrangle.
the switchblade is the guy with the shiv here doesn't know where the library is. He does seem rather pissed at me though.
All right.
Eres un bolsa de mierda? ¿Qué? No, what? That thing asking where the bathroom was actually just made him more upset. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Is that really what I said? I don't think that's asking him where the bathroom is. I think I said something else. Well, why'd you ask? Why did I have to ask the head of the criminal gang? Why am I talking to him? Okay, wait, hold on. My friend got me this crib sheet here. Okay, nice to meet you. Chingate. No. Smiling anymore. No. He's pulled out a tire iron. Okay. So yeah, come join us at In Time, and we also keep track of, and we keep, we are an independently run news show. So the people who participate help us, and we go through Facebook, we go through social media. We knew of the invasion and we're streaming the invasion, the main invasion from Crimea 7 hours before mainstream media had it. We were ahead of mainstream media much of the time. We had finished our coverage of the Wagner's invasion of Russia before Reuters had picked it up. So we take a lot of pride in our work. And I think if you go look at what we do and how we do it, I think you'll be impressed and hopefully we'll enjoy it as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you. All right. I don't have any follow-ups. This was you can't follow this up. It's like, why even try? So I'm just going to go ahead and close out with 2 claps and a Rick.
Woo!